I'd love to welcome Robert Simmons to the Haight Ashbury Video Oral History Project, and I know your friends call you Azul. My name is Rebecca Nichols, and I'll be moderating this tape. I'd like to learn a little bit about you. I know you've been a great contributor to the Oracle and many other things in the arts and writing and spirituality. I would love to know about your early beginnings. Where were you born?
I was born just a few blocks from here at the St. Mary Hospital.
St. Mary's, so right near the Haight Ashbury.
And Fulton and one of those blocks.
Cole, somewhere right up there.
Fulton and...
it's still standing there right now in 2005.
Yeah.
And what were your parents' names?
My mother's name was Mary Shannon, and my father's name was Warren Simmons. And I was brought up right at 6th Avenue in Fulton, right next to the Golden Gate Park, and I went to Lowell High School.
Amazing, the old Lowell High School.
Lowell High School here,
Sure.
with A's and Masonic.
Sure.
And then after that, I went to San Francisco State College.
I heard your grandparents were also born.
Yeah, I'm second and third generation
San Francisco.
I had a grandmother that lived on McAllister in Fulton.
Do you remember your grandmother's name?
Huh?
Do you remember your grandmother's name?
Yeah, Wilhelmina Hentz. And she was all in black, and she lived in a big Victorian one thing or another. And she was a bootlegger. And that was during the time of the bootleggers, and we used to up there as children.
Do you remember your grandfather's name?
I can't remember my grandfather's name.
Sure.
And we would sit in my grandmother's big lap with her big black Victorian clothes on. She'd hold us all like a big hand.
Wonderful.
I know.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have a deceased sister.
What was her name?
Marilyn.
Marilyn. Do you have any children?
No, one child, yes.
One child. Do you know that child's name?
I have a child by the name of Carrie.
Carrie, beautiful. So it looks like you've had a rich life. I would love to ask you real quickly, because then I want to move to the 60s.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember the Haight Ashbury at all before the 60s?
Well, of course, because when we got out of high school at Lowell, we used to walk just 2 blocks. And we'd go up to Edie's, and we'd go up to all these restaurants, and we would play football and badminton and basketball, everything in the Panhandle, and then tennis in the park on the way home.
And what, just like in the 50s?
Yeah, that was like in the 40s.
In the 40s.
Yes, so I remember very vividly the Second World War, like when you asked Travis about some of the traumas he remembered.
Sure.
Of course, I remember the concentration camps. And
wow. That, When were you born?
1929.
Wow, you look great. You really look great.
Chinese herbs.
That's Chinese herbs. Very inspiring. So you remember Haight Street before the big...
Oh, yes. It was very simple. It was
influx.
Very naive. It was right out of Foster's and, the gang that hang around at Miller's eating chocolate sodas with the whipped cream fillers.
Do you remember any of the businesses on the street that may not be here now? Do you remember?
They were all little 5 and dime stores, and as I say, it was very simple. Everything was inexpensive.
Do you remember Walgreens?
Walgreens and Edie's was the big one.
Walgreens where the actual Oracle office ended up landing somewhere right near there?
I think it ended up there. Yeah.
Right over there.
Right. It was very simple. It was kind of, even though there was a war on, it was a different kind of feeling on right now. Everybody was in uniform. Everybody's running around Market Street and da-da-da. And also there was a lot going on creatively in the 40s and 50s. When I went to State College, we had, all the existential plays, Waiting for Godot and Lorca and all this stuff being played.
Sure. You had the Beatnik era coming into
coming out the early Beatnik era was coming in, so it was big interest in existentialism and Sartre and Camus and literature and abstract painting, and all of that was all very active.
So you got some
so I got a strong
inspiration
influence. I went to San Francisco State College. I majored in liberal arts.
Yes.
Which basically means you could take anything.
Of course.
So I take art history, I take Asian art, I take, this and that. They had all kinds of things.
Sure.
And I lived with a beautiful lady at the time, right up here on Twin Peaks. And we had a house with 2 bedrooms and rent was $37.50 a month.
Amazing.
With a view.
I had a house on Ashbury and Page in the middle of the 6 A's.
Yes.
Big white Victorian. I paid $125.
Right. But anyway, living with Barbara, she was from New York. She was a few years older. She was very sophisticated. She was up on all the latest theater, films, cinemas, plays, that sort of thing. So I got very turned on to intellectual, lifestyle. I guess you would call it bohemian before the Beatniks were the bohemians.
Exactly. Exactly. When did you first find yourself having some type of talent with the arts or with writing? Had you started dabbling in that at all?
I went to the Korean War was on when I was in school, and everybody was afraid of getting caught in the Korean War and getting drafted and all that, and people were ducking in and out and one thing and another. Well, I happened to be a straight A student, so I got a direct commission in the medical corps, and I went to Fort Sam Houston for a few months, and then I was sent to FECOM, which means Far East Command. And suddenly here I am, 21, 22 years old, and they're rolling out, beautiful carpets, with geisha girls and everything in Japan. And I'm in a tea house of the August moon kind of, environment, getting turned on to Buddhism and the Zen and, reading books and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it got very interesting. When I came back, I went to the East Coast with my cousin and went into the building business for a few years, and then I made enough money to go over to Europe, where I moved to Europe and I went to the Sorbonne, Paris, studied French language and literature. I lived in southern France and Aix-en-Provence and traveled through most of Europe and the Greek islands, and then finally Morocco. Well, Morocco, as you know, is the swinging place, especially in the 50s and 60s.
Did you ever make it to India?
It was really great. And I traveled all through Morocco and wrote a novel about it called The Berber King. And
do you have a website or?
We're building it all the time,
Okay.
And so after Morocco, I went back to my apartment in Rome, and there were, of course, a lot of actors there and a lot of Americans. They were making Cleopatra at the time.
Right.
And this friend of mine, Alan Midget, said, "Oh, my name was still Bob Simmons. You should go to New York and see this guy, Dr. Cleary." I think he had his name mixed up, Dr. Cleary.
Cleary.
And they're having sessions over there, and it's quite fantastic. He told me all this in Rome. And I said, well, I was getting ready to go back to America anyway. I had been painting. I had a lot of canvases and a lot of writing to present and one thing and another. So I went to New York, and as soon as I get to New York, who do I meet? I meet Dr. Mishra. I meet Leary, I meet Alpert, I meet Metzner, I read the Psychedelic Review, all the books that you were talking about.
Sure. All
that stuff was going on. Claire Hoover was having these big psychedelic parties, and it was pretty extravagant. We'd stay
Did you
up
ever
all night.
go to Millbrook? Did you ever make it
Oh,
there?
yeah, I went to Millbrook several
wonderful.
times. And then,
Maybe
of course,
I saw
I
you
lived
as
at
a
the
child.
ashram. I lived at the ashram.
Oh, you lived at the ashram?
Yeah, I was like, and now when I was at the ashram, before I came out to California, it was like 1964, 65, 64, in comes Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, in comes Bhakti Vedanta, in comes Amrit Desai, in comes Yogi Vathaldes, in come all these people. So I didn't have to go to India right away. I was suddenly get all this input of, the whole thing. And when I remember when Maharishi was sitting up in Dr. Mishra's ashram, he had flowers all over. And he described everything in terms of flowers, and that everything should be surrounded with flowers, that our life was like a flower, that it grew, that it exuded, that it opened up like a flower, and the fragrance of your being and your essence and your isness all comes out. So that was actually the beginning of the idea of the flower child.
Wow.
Because when Maharishi came out to Berkeley in San Francisco after that, the whole thing was surrounded with flowers, and everybody wore flowers and danced with flowers. So
I would fight to the death that I wasn't a hippie, that I was a flower child.
So anyway, I studied with Dr. Mishra this whole thing about the Eden, the Pingali, the right and left hemisphere of the brain, the Kundalini, the serpent consciousness, all of that stuff.
Chakras.
So by the time I got to San Francisco, I was ready.
You were ready.
I was ready to put out all this knowledge I had of travel,
Where'd you come when you first
experiences,
came
and gurus.
back?
Huh?
Where'd you come when you first came back to San Francisco at this point?
Well, what happened, I was with a lady who was Hungarian from Budapest. Remember the whole war that happened over there and people left. And she was a painter and an artist also. And we came out to California. We met at a macrobiotic camp up in the mountains in New Jersey. And, of course, the Paradox restaurant in New York City was happening. Remember that one on 6th? So there was the Paradox restaurant. She was a macrobiotic cook. I was super interested in macrobiotics. So we said, let's go out to California, put up our opinions, and have a macrobiotic restaurant. So we did that. We came out and we moved it on Pine Street, 2140 Pine, right next door to Bill Ham, who did the first light shows, right across the street from the old Family Doghouse. Family Dog later moved up further up toward Van Ness. Right. So at that restaurant that we opened up, underground macrobiotic restaurant, because macrobiotics were taboo for the straight world. Right. You're going to take LSD and macrobiotics and die,
Right.
So it was there that I met Martine, and that I met other people, and Gary Goldhill, Jay Thalen, Ron Thalen, and they all came in and they looked at all my paintings and said, "Wow, you're a part of the scene here." And I said, "I've also got this writing here on my experiences."
Where was your restaurant?
Huh?
Your restaurant was near Pine?
Yeah, 2140 Pine.
Gotcha.
Pine and about Webster, Buchanan. And so the next day I was over with my manuscript, the first thing I published in the Oracle, which is Yoga and the Psychedelic Mind. And I did a drawing for that. And it was about my experiences in New York City, taking acid and walking all through the streets of New York City, up through the park, and the different things I'm envisioning, the Bardo States and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
It was all new, and we were looking for a vehicle for all this. There hadn't been an explosion of anything psychedelic since the time of Rimbaud and Verlaine and what they call the Poets Maudits and the Parnassian movement and the Club des Hashish, which, Cocteau and all those people, they all went to North Africa and smoked all this stuff.
Sure.
So there hadn't been a kind of psychedelic spark since then.
Right.
And this was now the big psychedelic spark that was opening these two dimensions beyond the first and second chakra, beyond your personality, into a really deep sense of freedom.
Through the third eye.
I mean, awakening was considered to be the realization of your true self as none other than your immortal self.
Right.
Well, if you talked about immortal self to people before the psychedelic, they would put you away in the nut
They
house.
put you away.
That's right. But suddenly the mortal self is who you are, who you always have been, and who you always have been. And this realization and this awakening that also happens on psychedelics under the right setting can trigger off this, disidentification with the false personality and with the small self. So suddenly there was this explosion and opening of the big self, of the Renaissance self. And actually the tradition of the whole 60s spiritual movement and everything goes all the way back to Egypt, goes back to Akhenaten, goes back to Nefertiti, to Hermes Trismegistus, to all the Hermetic philosophers and teachers, and to the Masons, and to the, Freemasons, and to Theosophy and the whole thing.
I had nowhere else to go.
So, in other words, this was a kind of reemergence of a Renaissance, because that energy moved up through Hermes and moved over to Babylon and eventually moved to Leonardo da Vinci and up to Goethe and Faust and to the man God, which was being expressed. And of course, still to this day, I'm sure that the Catholic Church and one thing or another is pretty antagonistic about 60s movements or about hippies or about long hair or about, regarding yourself as a God person or a goddess person. The goddess movement is
God completing himself in you.
Yeah. So all of that started then, and then it all came out. It came out into the women's movement. You could say in many ways that even the 60s movement was a precursor for what they call the New Age, and
Sure, the Aquarian Age.
The Aquarian Age and all of that. And in many ways, it looked like we were against something, like we were battling down the old to bring in the new. And I suppose there was some degree of that. Don't forget the Vietnam War was on.
Sure.
And with the Vietnam War on, that tempered everything. There were very intense political people, which was, of course, Berkeley.
Of course, people.
And San Francisco, which was more this spiritual orientation.
Spirit of peace
of your
and love.
true self being none other than your immortal self.
Sure.
Satchidananda.
Sure.
Thou art that, Om Tat Sat. If you said that around Catholics, they would say, you can't say that. Or, and of course, Muslims, too. These people get killed and knocked off for saying
just
that they're
for
God.
saying it, yes.
And
when you came back, see the amazing masses that were coming to San Francisco, coming to the Haight? Do you remember your memory?
Well, it wasn't an amazing mass. It grew slowly. It didn't really grow until the Bean, which he had mentioned. The Bean was about the issue number 4th or 5th, I can't remember. And that was, of course, the Summer of Love and the Bean.
Sure.
The 60s movement was very brief. It only lasted about a year and a half. And it lasted about the time of the length of the Oracle. But to show you the difference between the Berkeley thing and the Western thing, Michael Bowen called me one day in Martine, and Gary Goldhill, and I was with Yaya the cook, and we said, let's go to Berkeley. We're going to unify San Francisco and Berkeley. I said, great. So we get in the car and we drive over. We're going to meet Jerry Rubens and Mario DeSalvo, and we drive up in front of the Steppenwolf Club. Steppenwolf's Magic Theater, going beyond the personality of the mind. And you walked in, and we'd walk out the inn and get into a second car and drive away. Everything was so clandestine and hidden, you know, in Berkeley. And so we finally meet, and they're all sitting on one side, and they've got beret caps on and camouflage jackets, and we're all sitting on the other side. Yaya had just made me a beautiful Buddhist shirt, you know, with all flaming Buddhas on. And so they're looking at us, and we're looking at them. And they said, well, what do you think this whole thing is about? And I said, it's about fun. It's about love. It's about celebration and joy. And they all looked at me like I must have been. Yeah, well, that's the difference between we're into politics and confrontation, right. Organizing the Chicago 7, and, you know.
Right.
Everybody's got to be tough, and so you could see the difference there between the Berkeley, the difference between the Oracle and the Berkeley Bar, you know, was enormous, and between the mentality and the attitudes of what you had to do. You know?
What drew you to the Oracle? What opened up the connection for you to be involved with the Oracle?
Well, there was that first article that I wrote, which was Yoga and the Psychedelic Mind, because I knew that whole thing. And don't forget, I had all this expansive travel, Turkey, Morocco, different people all over the world. I met all the Dalis and the Wallies and the Mollies and, in the world, and Bali and all of those people.
Right.
So the second one came up, which I wrote, which was called Dropouts Delight. Because Timothy had said tune in, turn, and drop out. And it was really hard for a Western person to understand.
Right.
We all wanted them to say, take over, you know.
Right.
But drop out was very difficult. And to this day, it's used in a very pejorative, negative way. Even if you read the paper, there, drop out. Well, in India, and in Morocco, and everybody, you can drop out, and you can join an ashram, or you can join a community, and you can play drums, and you can stay in this 6th and 7th state chakra consciousness. And stay high all the time, and you're considered a Haji Malang, or you're considered a sadhu or a wild Baba. I mean,
you're vowed to drop
this last Kumela film was quite good, and it shows you the vastness, 18, 20, 30 million people all dancing wildly. Well, here they would put everybody in a nut house.
Right.
They're all dancing naked in the river, So the thing is, that's what dropout meant, and that's going to dropout in this country was very, very hard. It was a kind of passive resistance thing. Had a little bit of the satyagraha thing of India, but not much. But where do you drop out to? And that's always the question that comes up. And can you drop out before you've dropped in? And do you have to have a self before you can have a no self?
Right.
Like you said, you were running around doing things at a very, very early age before you had the subject-object duality split, before you even experienced what latency period was, or puberty. Or any of these things, before you develop a discerning mind, could you possibly go into letting it all go and dropping out? And you can imagine how that felt with, all the millionaire people back in the East Coast and Chicago and stuff, and they leave, $20 or $30 million for their children to go to school, and they give it all to Maharaji or Maharishi. They must have flipped out in those days because they wanted to drop out. A few years later, they wanted to drop back in and get their money back, and they couldn't. The guru was gone, and the situation had changed, and there was no more Rashinish Purnam, and
So, did you write any other articles for the Oracle?
Yeah. Well, then what happened? I went to Mexico. And when I came back, I went to Mexico during Oracle number 4, 5, and 6. And I went to Mexico, and I was down there in Mexico painting, traveling around. And I came back, and when I came back, I noticed that the scene had changed. I said, my God, what's happened? He said, oh, don't you know the psychedelic office has been, the psychedelic store has been busted. And all the people that were in the store are going to court, and they're having a big court case downtown, and in City Hall with Melvin Belli and Chulos, and Alan Cohen's on the stand, and Jay Kalin's on the stand, and not Jay, but the other one, Ron's on the stand. They're all going to get busted and have a felony against them. So naturally, I went right there, and I sat in on some of it, and I became a good friend of Bill Chulos, who later became a collector of mine, of painting and art and stuff. But already now they were really attempting to smash the scene down,
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to court over the F word. You couldn't say the F word. Now if you watch television, whatever, it's F, 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 F. Everything is F, right? Rappers, he used the F word. One was a book that was written by the name of Leonora Candell. She wrote a book called The Love Book, which was a beautiful book, beautifully illustrated, really powerful tantric book. And she used the F word. And that put everybody in jail or bail or something, You couldn't even use the F word then.
What do you think? What do you think in your background? I mean, it's almost like you were designed to be part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I was designed to be part of it, right?
To be a main player. Where do you think your passions were? What drove you to? I had spoken to Travis, and he said he was very inspired for a whole year because Kennedy died and wars were going on. And what inspired you?
Well, I wouldn't say that the wars were things that inspired me. What inspired me more than anything was freedom. Mm-hmm. Freedom was the main thing to me, and the expansion of consciousness. I mean, I had seen worse things in the Second World War.
Sure.
I saw 65 million people die. People say, what? 65 million? Yeah, 30 million Russians, 10 million Jews, 10 million, yeah.
Right.
That was, you used to open the paper, it was
Sure.
in the millions.
Sure.
So I was interested in freedom. Freedom from anything Hitler-like, freedom from any kind of control, freedom from any kind of, suppressing yourself to
Sure.
the greater good of the Führer or whatever, right?
Sure.
And,
Control.
and all of that.
Yeah.
So freedom was mainly my thing, freedom, sure. So I was interested also in freedom from conformity, freedom from negative past imprinting, and freedom to self-realization, self-integration.
Growth.
Because we had so much coming in that we had to be able to handle it all, integrate it all.
Sure.
The yin and the yang, the male and the female. The male and the female most hadn't really met yet.
Right.
They didn't meet until the 60s,
The sun and the moon.
And say, my God, you're a whole person, and I'm a whole, I thought you were a Barbie doll, whatever. So it all changed radically.
Sure.
So there were freedom too. Also, we had freedom with our diet, which were radical changes. We had macrobiotic restaurants. We had health food stores. Freedom in our clothing to wear these Renaissance-style
What
things.
is
Now when I walk
macrobiotic?
around today, it looks just like the 60s.
It's retro. What is macrobiotic for those that don't know?
Macrobiotic is a balanced food diet that's between the yin and the yang. See, what we usually do is we usually eat extreme yin, go out and have an ice cream soda, with some French fries, and have a milkshake, and then have a big giant burger with it, which is yang, So we bat ourselves around with these extreme yin and yang things.
Sure.
Macrobiotic is eating in the middle. It's eating grains. It's eating from the earth. It's a balanced way of diet that slowly opens you up and unfolds you and gives you incredible strength and wonderful connectedness to earth and to organic foods, and especially to foods that are a little, I would say, more yang, foods and herbs and carrots and beets and potatoes, things that are grown in the earth where they really get the minerals
Sure.
into them.
And so, how long have you been eating like this? How?
Oh, I wouldn't say that I'm a macrobiotic. The macrobiotic thing was a phase. I also
Right.
did gourmet food in Europe, and I also lived in Thailand
Sure.
for 7 or 8 years. I've eaten all kinds of Thai food,
What are you doing in your life right now?
Well,
Are you
we're
still
having a
painting?
kind of
Reading?
re-emergence of this oracle thing that's going
Yes.
on right now. So, and also, you asked if that was the last piece of individual writing I did. After that, I started doing illustrations for Steve Levine's poetry in the last number, about number 7 till about number 12.
Mm-hmm.
I did all of his poetry, other illustrations, the back cover, the I Ching mandala house,
Yes.
Many things like that are in it. And so I'm continuing to do writing, poetry, painting, exploration, publication,
What's your vision
and
for the
manifestation. Huh?
future? What's your vision for the future? What's
My
your
vision of the future? Well, my vision of the future is a one world family.
I love it.
And everybody loving,
Because this
living
tape
in peace. And
will be
that's
viewed by-
the one thing that I wanted to bring up, which was, if the 60s was about anything, it was about love. It might have been Romeo and Juliet love, but, there was this feeling of love. Like
Sure.
right now, I would say, because of the war and the situation that's going on, TV and beheadings and one thing and another, there's a slight depression of the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Well, during the time, there was an expression of the collective consciousness that was joy, happiness, peace,
Sure.
sharing. But, Alioto was in office then. And he didn't want to see that go, because they called him up. He had lined himself up to run for president. He said, how are you going to run for president if you can't even control the hippies? Wow, 400 police came down the street, and everybody with heads and clubs. And,
Sure.
It was unbelievable.
Sure.
But that's about when my name changed, when I came back from that name.
Yes.
I used the name Azul. It changed when I came back from Mexico. And we were all at the Oracle office. And if your name was Harvey, well, you became Hare Krishna. And if your name was, Gladys, you became, Govinda. And everybody took on different names. So
Sure.
this lady that I was with by the name of Vicky, I just come back from Playa Azul. She said Azul. And then Alan Cohen, who's standing right there, gave me my last name. He said Zhang Po. And we were both reading Lama Govinda, The Way of the White Clouds, and Lama Govinda's great treatise. What was Lama Govinda's great treatise on The Way of the White Clouds, and the other one? Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism.
Yes.
And it was all about this wonderful person, Zhang Po, who was an architect and builder. He did rivers, he did castles in the hills, and in Tibet. And the Tibet thing has been quite on the line also.
Yes.
It was the first time I saw Tibet. When I first saw Tibetan art, I understood it completely. I saw it on an island in New York City. And of course we were on Psychedelics. And,
About this Tibetan
and
sand
it just
paintings.
completely described every aspect of life and death and what you go through and the Bardo states and how the whole thing works. That was really what we meant by expansion of consciousness.
Right. Sure.
Seeing the big picture, the big landscape, not just the limited one. And when the 60s happened and people were reading Madame Blavatsky and Annie Besant and, whoever knew anything about Aquarian ages and Piscean ages and, the Golden Age and the Sat Yuga and the Kali Yuga. We didn't know about those kinds of things and time expansions and one thing.
Totally. Through these interviews, we're going to actually do some filming of the Oracle.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to video some of the photography, some of the line drawings of the writings and stuff. And most of those are signed. What is your signature on your work? Is it
Azul,
Azul,
yeah.
And so we'll look for that. And
Robert Simmons goes on the checks.
on the check.
The passports
Yes.
and the driver's license.
So in the future, when young people are looking at this for research, for ideas, what happened here? Why did it happen here?
Well, it always happens here. The Bohemian thing was very strong here after the Second World War, and but it moved very strong into socialism, communism, and the McCarthy thing happened, and the beatnik thing came out of that. And then after the beatnik thing, you got the hippie thing. The hippie was not quite the right word to use.
No.
As a matter of fact, when I went to France and people had said, what have I been doing in California? I said, j'étais un hippie bien connu, quoi. What? A hippie bien connu? That's terrible. Hippies are terrible, dégueulasse people who don't even clean their underwear, So it was really something, 2 minutes. I use the word in a lot of my articles, a spiritual revolution or the awakening or, the rebirth of the Renaissance. And
I love the one family that
the one family
came with, because as people are looking at this film in the future and come back to it, it's still the same family, generations moving down.
Right.
And what happened here in the Bay Area not only affected the Bay Area, it connected New York and England and London, affected the world on the artist scene, on the music scene.
The word hippie actually came from Southern California, from the Mexicans who were called the Chicanos. They had a big watch, and they used to go like this with their watch, swing it around like that, and they all smoked grass. And that was considered, they moved their hips, so that was considered hippie.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, the hula hoop, hippie.
Right.
Anything to move the hips. Elvis.
Super.
The pelvis.
Well, I want to thank you so much. It's such a joy.
Thank you.
And we're going to be doing another tape a little later on in the day.
Okay.
We welcome you to join in on this.
Let's do one on the evolutionary background, the total evolutionary background of the whole movement.
That's what we would like.
Then we got to
include.
document it.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.